Howdy, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and welcome to tips number 626, adapting plates to my dividing head. Now, I've done a whole series of these videos on making these plates. Now let's talk about the possibility of adapting other brands or other manufacturers' plates onto this particular dividing head, which is a lathe dividing head, because I only have one plate for this. The others were lost along the way. More than likely, many different manufacturers' plates could probably be adapted to this. Certainly the Hardinge could, and I have 3 of those, but there's probably 5 in a complete set. But you might remember in another video where I talked about this pair of plates here that were given to me by Don and Phyllis. And really, it's 2 plates, but actually it's 4 because they're extra thick and they're double-sided. So I have really a nice set of plates here if I can make them fit onto this dividing head. And there are several things that I will have to do in order to make that happen. So let's take a look at what they are. Be sure and watch all of the videos in this series about dividing head plates, and this is video number 7, which is tips number 626, entitled Adapting Plates to My Dividing Head. Now, looking at the original plate that was made for this, you can see that it is rather thin. It's about 3/16, and it's 5 inches in diameter, so it's smaller than these, but that isn't going to hurt a thing. The fact that it's a little bit larger in diameter, kind of irrelevant. But what do I have to do to make this fit? Well, first of all, you can see that the hole is too large. Well, I've already done something about that. I've made a couple of these bushings. They're aluminum, but they could be any material, and they will fit in here and be held in with Loctite, and I've already done that to this one. So that's held in there firmly, and you can see it fits perfectly. I have no idea who made these plates because there is no manufacturer's name on it, but there is a number here. But notice here that this side has circles from 15 to 21, and on the back side 29 to 38, and on the other one 22 to 26 and 39 to 49. These 2 plates are made of cast iron, not steel, and you can see some wear on them, as I can see some wear on my Hardinge plates. So this outer circle was probably heavily used at one time, because you see some where they dragged the pin and let it fall in, and that did cause some wear. Probably not enough to hurt it, but you can see that there's a little bit of elongation there. You know, nothing in life is easy, is it? Well, this is the original Master. That's the brand. And the pin here in the crank fits perfectly in that. But looking at these cast iron ones now, these holes are of course a little bit too small. But no problemo. Well, I could make a new pin, but the easier thing to do is to drill them out, and I've already done that on the outer 3 circles here. So you can see that it already fits. 1, 2, 3, and those are blind holes again. 1/8 inch. I just drilled them out to 1/8 inch. It went real fast, but I haven't done these yet. That's a lot of holes to drill. And this is the plate that I'll use, and you can see some damage there too. You know, these could be 70 years old, maybe even much older. And thank you again to Don and Phyllis for sending these to me. Alright, I drilled a bunch of holes and completed all the holes on this side, and the pin fits perfectly. And boy, that cast iron drilled beautifully. Perhaps you could tell that by looking at the video. And the chips just came right out and it leaves no burr, and it doesn't grab like steel, so it's a pleasure to work with cast iron. Well, the hole pattern is considerably different. We've got 3 holes here, and they're countersunk, where there are 4 holes on these, and they are counterbored from both sides for number 10 cap screws, like that. Now those are 1032 fine. I'm using fine simply because I have plenty of those in stock. Naturally, they are a little bit too long right here, so I will grind that off because the sector has to turn on that, so they have to be a little bit below flush. Alright, so that I'll do off camera, and I'm only going to use 2 rather than 4 because that works a little bit better in regards to the spacing here, so I'm going to drill 2 holes here. I'm not going to use these. Maybe I said that. I'm just going to drill 2 holes here, 1032. I will transfer those and drill them and tap them 1032. I think that most of you are aware of these wonderful markers, that they are just perfect for marking deep holes, because they're so narrow right here. So I'm just marking this here to make sure that these holes will be about where I want them. And there you can see. So now I'll go back and transfer those. Alright, it's looking good, and these screws are flush, ground off just a little bit, checking with my straight edge. Time for a story. Let's talk about this little notch in my Brown & Sharpe scale. When I was teaching school, I carried these 3 tools or similar ones in my pocket, in a pocket protector no less. I was quite the nerd in my shop coat, along with a ruler. So I had a scriber and a center punch and a magnet and a rule to use constantly throughout the day. And I basically wouldn't let the kids use that. They'd always ask, "Can I use your center punch?" No, because they would either ruin it or they wouldn't give it back. They had good intentions. They weren't trying to steal it. It's just that they would lay it down and, you know, that was it. They'd walk away. So I had that rule, you know, you can't use my tools. Well, we're back in the back of the room, and standing next to the Kalamazoo cutoff bandsaw, and a boy is getting ready to cut off some stock, and he said, "Mr. Pete, can I use your rule?" And there, no, go over and get one. But of course it's 30 feet away. And I said, all right. I kind of let up. I said, go ahead. And he used this, and within moments he ran it into the moving blade and put that nick in it, and that's probably well over 40 years ago, and I'm still carrying it. But I think of that story every time I look at that. And the rule is pretty well beat, and it's seen a lot of service, and I did particularly like what the Brown & Sharpe called their bullet graduations that were easy to see when you used the 32nd or 64th. Easy to read. I did like the Brown & Sharpe products, but that's what that notch is all about. Well, I had to make some other modifications as well. So I took the Philister head screw that was originally in there, and the head was too high, so I used a little button head screw, and I still had to grind part of that off and grind it to length so it would be flush on this side. Why am I telling you this? Because it needs to spin like that, and I have to have some way of holding that on there. You remember that the original one was held on with this wire retaining ring, but that groove is way too low now because of the extra thickness of the plate. So how am I going to hold that on and give it some tension? Well, I had to spend, it was like a whole hour actually, I think, because naturally I had to make two of them, but I made this aluminum ring with a little set screw in it, and that is relief for that button head screw. So let me put that on like that. I got a pretty good fit, and you can see it now clears the screw. Let me zoom in on that. Zooming in now, perhaps you can see the purpose of that relief. Then I can tighten the little set screw, and the sector is still going to swing, and it has a little bit of tension on it because you don't want it to just flop around and lose your setting. Well, that's done. Well, next for the crank pin here, there was way too much tension on the spring, especially in that I had to move it out a bit. This is a press fit. I would love to have pressed that back out a ways, and then I wouldn't have had to change any of this, but I did take this apart, and it was a rather stiff spring in there. It looks like somebody cut that off, unless they did that at the factory. And I put a lighter and shorter spring in there so I did not have too much tension, because this has to be pulled way back when I fit this up. So let's go ahead and install this, see how it works. Okay, that really works nice. So I have just the right amount of tension on the sector and the plunger, and I'm ready to use this. So this plate, double-sided, along with this plate, double-sided, probably will meet all of my needs, and in some ways I don't need the original or a lot of the other ones that I made, but it still has given you some possibilities here if you ever have to make these. But since there's a highly unlikely need for anyone to make these plates, really what this whole video series is about is just machining and how to do layout and how to make different setups and all that might be useful to you in your shop, you know, for whatever your applications are. And really this is just for entertainment, edutainment. Well, that concludes this video on how to fit up other manufacturers' plates on a dividing head, and that's certainly going to vary depending on what plates you have and what your dividing head is and how it's made and all that. Well, be sure and watch the next video where in this package that just came in the mail I will conclude this series on dividing head plates. So be sure and tune in for that. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now, and thanks for watching. See you next time.